Want help to grow your business? Download BRiN, the world's first business advisor in your pocket. To find out more, visit BRiN.ai or search the App Store today.
Hi, I'm Dale Beaumont and welcome to Secrets Exposed. This is the show that takes you up close and personal with world-leading business experts. And our topic for this interview is how to unblock your creativity now. That coming up in just a moment. Welcome back. We're speaking with Andrew Grant, who is an international speaker, a best-selling author, and an expert in creativity and innovation. And our topic for this interview is 7 ways to unblock your creativity now. So let's get into this really exciting topic. Welcome to the studio. And I want to start by asking you, what are the 3 reasons why entrepreneurs or business owners or leaders, managers need to become more creative?
Well, I think one of the first reasons is IBM undertook one of the biggest CEO surveys a couple of years ago to 1,500 CEOs around the world, asking them what is the most important attribute that workers can have at an executive level in the workforce. And luckily for me and my work, creativity or creative thinking came up as number 1 above everything else. So that's the first thing. The second thing is I think we were all creative as children. I mean, I love to ask the question to my people in workshops, who thinks they were creative as children? And all of them put their hands up. Who thinks they're creative now? No hands go up. So we had that creativity as children, and we've got a great little video that we went into a school and we asked our kids called Hands Up, who thinks they're creative? And all the kindergarten kids, yeah. By the time I got to year 12, they all just sat there like that. And when we interviewed one of the school teachers, he said, unfortunately, school rewards correct answers. It doesn't reward creative answers. And that's what happened. We go into university, again, we get rewarded for correct answers, not creative answers. Then we get into the workplace, and up until now, we used to be rewarded in the workplace for correct answers. But computers can do that. So what we need in the workplace now that the computers aren't going to be able to do is the creative thinking, which is taking something from here, totally unrelated, and putting it together to come up with something better. So we need to be creative in order to come up with new ideas faster.
Okay, now when we talk about creativity, you said it's such an important thing for executives, managers, leaders. Are we talking, is another way to think of it problem solving, or is it sort of different?
Yes, I think the first mistake people make is they think creative, in the field that we're in, they think it's about being artistic. Well, I am totally unartistic.
You've got to be a musician.
I've got to be a musician, that's right, or it's about joining a marketing company, and I got a lot of banks as clients, and they sit in their room going, what's this got to do with me? So that's exactly what's important. This is not about staring at clouds and seeing patterns or painting. It's about problem solving. It's a particular way of problem solving where you don't know the problem and you don't know the answer, and it's about thinking laterally enough, as I said, to see a connection between this and this, 2 unrelated things, and then bringing them together. So it's definitely not about being artistic. It's called creative problem solving, critical thinking, creative thinking. Creativity is the more painting side of it, but creative thinking is looking at a problem from a different perspective to come up with a better answer.
Now, we're soon going to talk about what blocks people's creativity, and there's 7 different things we can do to unblock ourselves. I'm really looking forward to talking about that. But just on this topic for a moment, you mentioned that as a child we're all creative, but then we get much older and we don't think of ourselves as creative. I want to know, can you actually get it back? Like, can you rediscover your creativity later in life?
Well, that's right. I think creativity, we wrote our book with a neuroscientist because we wanted to validate everything we'd seen in the business and non-business perspective. Could it be validated from a neuroscientific perspective? And he's basically was saying that your brain is a muscle. Just like any other muscle. And if you use certain parts of your brain, they're going to get stronger. And if you don't use certain parts of your brain, they're going to get weaker. I mean, it's a bit old-fashioned now to talk about left and right brain, but if we tend to solve every problem through our the logical side of the brain that processes information, then that side of the brain is going to get much stronger, but at the expense of the more kinesthetic. If I threw you a ball right now, you'd take it in your dominant hand, and every time I threw you that ball, that dominant hand would get stronger and stronger and better, at the expense of the non-dominant hand. So I think what's happening is we can relearn it, but it's not about going to a one-day seminar and saying, I've done my 7 steps. It's about practicing creative thinking every day in your life to make sure that we are exercising all sides of the brain and looking at problems from different angles.
Now, you wrote the book and it's called Who Killed Creativity?
And how you can get it back.
Okay, and how you can get it back.
Yeah.
So is there an answer to that? Who killed it?
Well, that's right. We were asked to write a book and we were told, don't write another book on creativity. There's already too many out there. There's probably 10,000 steps to be creative. And we had a lot of people come to our seminars and workshops to want to do the typical design thinking, problem solving and solve a problem because the boss told them they had to go. And we thought, well, they came into our session saying, that's not me, I'm not creative, give it to the creativity department, which didn't exist in a company. And we thought, well, hang on, they're all coming with excuses. We all know that creative thinking is important, but they're coming with excuses. So why don't we try and address the elephant in the room? Why don't we find out, if you're sitting there and saying, I want to be creative, but I'm full of fear, or I want to be creative, but who cares, I'm apathetic. So we thought we had to address these issues before we could go on to the how you can get it back, before we could teach the design thinking, before
These are
we
the
could...
blockers we're going to talk
That's
about.
right, before we could explain the how to be creative. If we didn't deal with the issues that were going on in people's brains, that were sitting saying, yeah, I know I need to be creative, but I can't because of, which we'll talk about after the break, X, Y, and Z. And then to do it in a game or a simulation, a whodunit, Cluedo type thing, made it more fun, because then people could hide behind the characters. No one's going to go into the boss's office and say, you killed my creativity. You just wouldn't do it. But you're playing a game, oh yeah, it's a lot more fun. Oh, I think this one does it. And we'll get into that after the break. But the key thing is here, we can't be creative until we first clear out all the junk and understand what stopped us being creative in the first place.
And to people that say, I'm just not creative, you don't really buy that?
Yeah, all it means is I'm not sporty. I haven't used I can't do any push-ups because I haven't done push-ups for the last 20 years. I mean, you know, it's about exercising that brain. Of course, more jobs, more certain mindsets are going to be more accustomed to it. They're going to be probably using their creative thinking more times. But the more you use it, the more you have it. The less you use it, the more you're going to lose it.
And I think the other thing, I'm sure that you'd also say that it doesn't matter what department you're in. Typically, people say, oh, well, marketing and also advertising. Those guys are going to be really creative. But I'm in finance or I'm in operations. That's not very creative.
Well, we had creative financing. It was called the GFC when companies thought they could, do things wrong. But I remember talking to the CEO of a large insurance company, 120 years old, German company. We've been around because we're not creative. We have to do the same thing over and again. I mean, I don't want to give my money to an insurance company for them to play with my money and be creative. But at the same time, his sales guys jumped in and said, well, sure, we may not need to be creative on the processes that have kept us successful, but we still have to be creative in maybe the way we pitch it, the way we sell it, the way we position that product. So
how we keep it inspiring.
How we keep inspiring people, how we make an office that's people want a great place to work. So to hide behind that, oh, but this is not my field, I don't need to do it, I think is a very dangerous place to be. And probably an excuse to justify our ability to stay with what's safe and comfortable in our life.
Okay, now we're going to go through the 7 blockers in just a moment, but just quickly tell us what are maybe 2 or 3 takeaways from the book as a bit of kind of an introduction of what we're going to be talking about.
Well, we want people to understand what's going on in their brain as they come into any sort of situation that requires creativity. We want them first to stop back and go, let me look at the landscape. We've got this game board here, which is a bit like a whodunit within the executive office, the coffee shop, marketing team, the boss's office. As we walk into our workplace, and maybe it's not as sterile as that, where are these, to use their metaphor, creative killers or suspects, where are they lurking? Do they hang around the canteen? Do they hang in the boss's office? We go to the finance team and bureaucracy kills creativity because we come up with this great idea and we say, I've got this fantastic idea, and we take it to the accounting department. He says, no, it won't work. Now, it's not the no, maybe it's right, but it's the way they say no that might kill the creativity. And that's the thing we've got to be most careful about. You hear stories of people coming, I won't say which one, but a company that was larger than Apple. Someone came up with this great creative idea. And the boss said, and by the way, it doesn't exist anymore, but the boss said, it wasn't that the boss said it was a bad idea, it was that he said it was a stupid idea, and he swore at the guy. And this was just a young graduate student. So do you think that guy will ever come back with another creative idea again? He'll sit back and go, oh, that just killed my creativity. I'm not going to do it again. I had one last example. We had a boss of a company ask us to run this session. They paid a lot of money for us to run it right through their whole company. And he came into the beginning of the session with all his executives, gave a nice introduction and said, enjoy your 2 days of training. I'll come back at the end of the 2 days. And we all looked and said, but this is the opportunity for you to understand the cultural landscape of what's blocking people in your lives, in your company being creative. He came back at the end of the session and there were hundreds of ideas all around the room. Hundreds, and it was just beautiful, all the things we'd come up with. And he freaked out. He sat in the middle of the room, and each team, one by one, got up and gave their presentation to him. And the first team was really enthusiastic and really exciting, and and he just sat there like that. You could see he was freaking out because he had no idea of the process that we'd been through. All he saw was these lots of silly ideas on the wall. And most of them are silly, but you only need one good one. By the time the last team got up, instead of jumping up with that level of enthusiasm and excitement that the first team did, they were all pushing each other, say, you do it. No, you do it, you do it. They got up, they spoke as fast as they could, and they sat down again. That boss, who employed us to be creative, who employed us to teach his team to be creative, killed the creative process in about 30 minutes, just by his mannerisms, his control, his not understanding the process. And I think when we get back after the break, we'll talk about the actual 7 things that block the creative process. Allow me to be creative. Let's get into this crime scene investigation mindset and talk about the 7 killers.
I'm very intrigued. All right, we're going to take a short break. When we get back, we are going to go through the 7 blockers to your creativity. We're going to discover what they are and how you can break through. So keep watching. Welcome back. We're speaking with Andrew Grant, and the topic for this interview is 7 ways to unblock your creativity now. All right, so now we're going to get into the blockers. Now, before we start listing them, and I believe there is 7, what are these blockers? And we've got this kind of, been talking about the analogy of the murder mystery. So explain the relationship between the blockers and the murder mystery.
Right, well, if you remember back in Jack the Ripper's day, Jack the Ripper was let's talk crime. Jack the Ripper was a famous serial killer, and the police could never catch him because they had no profile on him. They had no idea what he looked like. You could be sitting right next to him having a beer at night and not know he was Jack the Ripper because they had no what called forensic concept or ability to spot a crime other than when it was happening. If you come forward into the future, the film Minority Report that actually says that you can catch a criminal before they commit a crime, that's a bit scary. But we've got companies now like Amazon, eBay, and even the police department.
To continue enjoying this presentation, download BRiN, the world's first business advisor in your pocket. To find out more, visit BRiN.ai or search the App Store today.